Kingpin is going down by the end of Daredevil Born Again Season 2, but is Daredevil the one who actually does it, or is it something or someone else? Well, I've been reading through the comics, and I think I have an idea of how things are going to go down this season, all thanks to one of the best Daredevil stories in recent history. First and foremost, before we dive into that, let's make sure we're all on the same page as to where Daredevil Born Again Season 1 ended, and obviously spoilers ahead for that season if you haven't seen it yet. Wilson Fisk is mayor of New York City, and he ran on a strict anti-vigilante platform, and Matt stopped being Daredevil for a bit after Foggy was killed. What? But Matt got back into the game after his girlfriend was abducted by the serial killer Muse, and with all vigilantes running around causing some havoc, this created the Anti-Vigilante Task Force, which is basically a corrupt militarized group of NYPD officers that operate outside of the law. Sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it? Eventually, things get out of hand, including Bullseye getting out of prison and attempting to kill Fisk, with Matt actually taking the bullet for Fisk and saving him. What the f***? Which ultimately leads Fisk to create more chaos by creating a citywide blackout, which he then blames on the vigilantes, outlaws vigilantism, and puts the city under martial law. And we end with Matt and Karen and some other allies regrouping at Josie's bar with a great little monologue, essentially ending with 3 words: resist, rebel, rebuild. So with Fisk having such a strong hold on the city, as well as our heroes and villains for that matter, how is the Kingpin gonna get taken down? And that's where we get inspired by the story Devil's Reign by Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto. Now in theory, you could argue that we've already started this story arc in season 1 because we have the same basic setup. Fisk is mayor and has outlawed vigilantes in New York City with the Powers Act, and he has his own anti-vigilante task force, the Thunderbolts, consisting of US Agent, Shocker, Rhino, and other villains, all with the goal of taking down Daredevil. So now you might be like,
wow, this is exactly what's happening in Daredevil Born Again. So how do they defeat Wilson Fisk?
Well, there are a few different things in this story that are going to contribute to Wilson Fisk's downfall, and those are going to be loosely adapted to Born Again Season 2. And let's start with the most obvious one: Daredevil. Now, Matt does his fair share in taking Fisk down at the end of that story, but he is primarily a distraction for Fisk throughout the entire time. Because in Devil's Reign, Fisk used to know Daredevil's identity as Matt Murdock, but he has forgotten that, as well as the rest of the world, thanks to the Purple Man's children, and is basically on a do-or-die quest to find out who Daredevil's true identity is, in addition to taking him down. We obviously don't have that happening in Born Again. In fact, Fisk knows Matt is Daredevil, but I'm sure it would give Fisk great pleasure to take down Daredevil and reveal his true identity to the world as Matt Murdock. But I do think something very similar happens in Born Again Season 2, where Fisk just becomes so distracted with Matt and Daredevil because all he wants to do is take Daredevil down and reveal his true identity to the world, which means he's going to kind of forget about all the other things he needs to do to keep the city running in order of how he likes. Which leads me to the next factor that is going to contribute to Wilson Fisk's downfall as the mayor. We clearly have a small group forming, attempting to take down Fisk and his authoritarian rule, which means we're going to be getting other heroes involved, and it's not going to just be Daredevil doing all of this by himself. In Devil's Reign, since all villains and heroes were considered vigilantes, there was an underground resistance formed primarily by the Avengers, led by Captain America, who were joined by the likes of the Fantastic Four, the Champions, and other heroes. Of course, we're not going to be getting those specific heroes in this story, but we are going to be getting other heroes joining Matt, including Angela Del Toro, who we saw for a tiny moment in Season 1, who will be taking up the mantle of the White Tiger, and she's definitely going to be looking to get revenge for the death of her uncle. Another vigilante and fan favorite that we saw in Season 1 is the Punisher. However, he is not going to be in this season of Daredevil Born Again, as that's been confirmed by other sources. But we do have another heavy hitter and fan favorite joining Daredevil's side, and that is none other than Jessica Jones. And she's definitely not going to be just a one-off cameo and should have the same level of importance and role as the Punisher did in Season 1. Of course, her and Matt have a history of working together, as they did in the Defender series along with Luke Cage and Iron Fist. And while it's not confirmed that we're going to be getting Luke Cage or Iron Fist in Season 2 of Born Again, both actors put out some cryptic stuff on social media in regards to their Marvel roles. And given that we're trying to go even more street level for Season 3 of Daredevil Born Again, I wouldn't be surprised if we get Luke Cage and Iron Fist joining the resistance against Fisk for like the last 2 episodes of the season. There's also one more person that I think is going to join Matt's side, although I'm not too sure how it's going to go, because in Devil's Reign, we do have some people defect from Wilson Fisk. Most notably, Rhino helps the champions kind of evade some of these drones that automatically recognize vigilantes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have some of those drones in this season to kind of do that same thing. But Rhino defected because he was told by Kingpin to go ahead and kidnap some kids. And Rhino was like, that doesn't sound right. That's not what I'm here to do, and I don't want to do that. So while this person is technically no longer working for Fisk in the show, I do think we get a villain teaming up with Daredevil, and that is, of course, Bullseye. And I'm not exactly sure how they settle their differences since Bullseye did kill Foggy. But I do think Matt reluctantly lets Bullseye help them out since they both have a common enemy. So towards the end of Devil's Reign, our heroes are fighting off Fisk's Thunderbolts as well as the Purple Man, and meanwhile, Matt goes after the Kingpin because Kingpin killed Matt's brother. And when Matt is about to kill Kingpin, Elektra stops him from committing the ultimate sin. And honestly, I could see some very similar ending of that happening in the show, whether it's Matt or another hero has someone very close to them that gets killed, and that person is gonna need to be stopped. Now, whoever stops Matt, my best guess would be like Karen Page or someone else. Now, I will say that there is another contributing factor that I think is going to take down Fisk as mayor, and it's something that we don't really know a ton about. In Devil's Reign, Fisk is dealing with being consumed by revenge and power, and he's dealing with that in Born Again as well. We're having a new character introduced that is all about power, and that is Matthew Lillard's character, Mr. Charles. And we just learned a little bit more about this character from an interview with Matthew Lillard, where he says his character is a CIA spook. He's a guy that controls power from afar. He helps nations rise and fall, but he's very clandestine. He is not impressed by the power of Kingpin at all. He and I get into this really delicious struggle over power. Now, truly, I do question if the character's name is Mr. Charles, because I think that could honestly just be something to throw off us fans to actually knowing who Lillard's character is. Now, in Devil's Reign, there is someone that I do think Lillard could be playing, and he's part of this sibling duo, Quinn and Una Stromwyn. And they are basically these wealthy elite people who have honestly nothing better to do with their money and pulled the strings to get Fisk in as mayor of New York City. And even after he's been removed as mayor, they try to make a deal with Fisk to say they'll make all of this go away and that their next goal for Fisk is to make him president of the United States. So I do wonder if Lillard's character is going to be this loose interpretation of Quinn Stromwyn, because he could easily be brought into the fold by maybe he was working with Vanessa at the Red Hook ports, and now he's getting closer and wants to benefit himself by keeping Kingpin in power by, financially vesting in Kingpin. But obviously, they're gonna have some ideas that aren't gonna jive together because clearly they're gonna butt heads about it. I do think there is another factor that could be contributing to Fisk's downfall, and that is quote unquote the system, where we could have Matt and Kirsten McDuffie going after Kingpin through the legal system, which is just going to be this other distraction, other thing that is going to take away his focus from truly bringing down Daredevil. But ultimately, I do think we're gonna get a similar ending of this season that we got in Devil's Reign. Now, at the end of Devil's Reign, Wilson Fisk doesn't take that deal with the Stromwyns. In fact, he goes off sailing with his partner, Typhoid Mary, and just to enjoy themselves because they really haven't had the time. And he hands over his empire and the title of Kingpin to his son, Butch. I do think something very similar happens at the end of this season of Daredevil Born Again, where Fisk is no longer mayor. He and Vanessa go off somewhere to enjoy themselves because they really haven't had the time to do so. With that being said, he doesn't have a son to hand over his empire to, but they have been building this protege all throughout season 1, and we've kind of seen him turn towards very Kingpin-esque tendencies, and that is Daniel Blake. So I do think, and this is a hot take, that Kingpin is going to end up handing over his empire for the time being to be under control of Daniel Blake. How do you think Kingpin is going to be taken down? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you for being here. Until the next video, Excelsior.